Hi, I'm Demi Stevens. Welcome back. The moral of this module's story is don't throw away your words. Now I know when we were back in junior high and high school, before the days of middle school and all of that, all of that. Taboo, I said the word. Oh, but I was being specific, so it's okay, isn't it? Forgive me. Back in those days, we needed to reach a word count. We needed to fill a page. We were striving for the number of inches that our teacher had assigned in the total page count. But it wasn't always the most compelling writing that we could have turned in on that assignment, was it? So now, as we turn to writing the text and the prose of our books, I want you to take a second look at the choice of words that we use as we write. And don't guilt yourself about the use of any of the words that I'm going to talk about today. They are all incredibly common and elements of our everyday speech. What we do when we turn our thoughts and feelings, emotions into writing for books, though, we want to make those word choices intentional. And so if you're finding some of the words that we outline in today's session and in the handouts, which you can download from the section, scroll down to the right, if you're finding a lot of usage of these words, then just put a little list to the side, and anytime you finish a new chapter or assignment, do a quick search. The find that we spoke of earlier by Control F or Command Key F, and have a look to see if you're getting better, because chances are good the more you write and the more you practice this new skill, the stronger even your first draft writing is going to become. So you all know by now that the number one hit list word for me is that, and we want to trim the that. It's a throwaway word that we don't even notice anymore in speech, but it could be left out to tighten and speed up the read on our printed page. All right, read that last sentence again, but leave out the that. This is from your handouts. We're going to be practicing in our session coming up what some of the easy minor changes are that we can make to strengthen your writing today. So if I left that out, it's one of those throwaway words we don't even notice in speech, rather than that we don't even notice in speech. Okay, now here's another example. I would like you to catch all the that's. I'm going to paste them up on this screen here for you. I remember the smell of rye bread baking in my home when I first learned that my grandmother had died. That aroma is now indelibly paired with her death in my brain. Now, when I smell rye bread, I know that thoughts of my grandmother will pop into my head. All right, what you can do if you've printed out the handouts is circle the that's here, and we're going to go back through each of those sentences which hold a that, and we're going to read it with and without and compare. All right. I remember the smell of rye bread baking in my home when I first learned that my grandmother had died. Okay, that's with. Here's without. I remember the smell of rye bread baking in my home when I first learned my grandmother had died. Am I right? We don't miss that at all. So this is an example of a spot we can cross it right out. That aroma is now indelibly paired with her death in my brain. That aroma. Not this aroma or another aroma, but that aroma. The aroma of baking rye bread. So in this case, do we keep it? Yes, we do. All right, and the final sentence in this example, now when I smell rye bread, I know that thoughts of my grandmother will pop into my head. Take two. Now when I smell rye bread, I know thoughts of my grandmother will pop into my head. Do you see how it reads quicker and cleaner without? We're going to be tackling even more small tweaks just like this in this module session. So all of these are available in the handouts, and I'm just going to pop ahead to the next one so we get a little taste of several different quick and easy painless changes. All right, here is one that I never knew the power of until I started poring over my own writing and that of my friends' writers, my other friends who are writers. Replacing ing verbs. Any verb that ends in ing, needing, baking, wanting, loving, caring, sleeping, all of these ing verbs will read stronger almost all of the time in our writing if we replace them with simple past tense verbs or active tense verbs in the present tense, depending on the scene. But many of us are writing past tense pieces. So here's our example of replacing an ing verb with a past tense verb. I'm going to read the sentence and then I'll toss out my idea. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there is no one way to rewrite or to re-see what you want to portray in your prose. There's no one right and wrong way. There are right and wrong spellings, yes. But you can tell the same story in a myriad of ways. So I'm going to offer one up, and I encourage you in the comments section below, toss in your idea to the mix, because I think what we'll all find is that there are many ways to write compelling prose. Okay, so here's the example that begins with an ing verb. Needing to slow down, Tom pushed on the edge of his ski and made a hard turn onto the rocky hill. Did you catch which verb we're going to focus on? Needing to slow down. All right, we're going to try replacing that ing verb with simple past tense. So needed is from I need, and if I did it in the past, I needed. Okay, but in this case it's Tom who needs something, so Tom needed. Now, can we still start the sentence with the verb phrase? Tom, no, I don't think I can. It doesn't want to come out that way. So I'm going to rearrange the sentence. And this is the part where I say there's no one correct answer. Dive right in and have fun with it and see where it leads you. Because sometimes, once we replace the weaker verbs and the weaker words with stronger, more powerful action verbs and words, we discover all sorts of new ways to improve our writing. So here's my version of this one. Tom needed to slow down. He pushed on the edge of his ski and made a hard turn onto the rocky hill. It's better than needing to slow down. Tom pushed on the edge of his ski. I think part of what makes it more compelling is that we know Tom needs to take some action here. Tom needed to slow down. He pushed on the edge of his ski. So it's part of the tension and momentum on a very small scale that we talked about in Module 8. All right? If you've got other ideas for how to fix and improve this sentence, drop it in the comment below, and I'll look forward to reading and writing back with you there. Here's another one. There are many times in prose when we're talking about an action in our story that our character is just starting to do something, just beginning to do something. And we double up the quantity of verbs in those sentences without a thought. Jimmy started to do this. Tanya was starting to do that. Jane began to do this. Any form of these words, I'm encouraging you to Control F to find them in your prose and rethink. Do you need compound verbs? Do you need two verbs here to do the job? I'm going to choose the example from the handout. The tips of his fingers were starting to get numb. That does imply that it was just now starting. But isn't it so much more compelling to say the tips of his fingers were numb? Because it prompts us as writers to fill in the next step. The tips of his fingers were numb. It was a horrible cold day. And horrible is a lousy adjective there. So you write it better. Drop me a comment in the box below. And how would you improve this line? The tips of his fingers were starting to get numb. Paint the scene that follows that sentence. Once we improve it, there's plenty more room to grow. All right, and just one more. Suddenly. So many times in our life we think that things have suddenly happened. But do you know what? It was cause and effect leading up to that. Suddenly the cat appeared in front of me. Well, that's because I put food in her tray. You know, of course she was going to appear, but it wasn't sudden. She may have appeared all of a sudden, but there were things leading up to that. And so I'm going to encourage you in your writing to plant more of those details, the cause and effects, that lead up to a moment where you're itching to use the word suddenly or all of a sudden in that phrase. All right, here's an example. Suddenly the aromas of Christmas overwhelmed me for a moment. Okay, that sentence feels wrong to me on two levels. Suddenly, the aromas of Christmas, well, a smell just doesn't suddenly get into the air. And second, they overwhelmed me for a moment. When I get overwhelmed, buddy, I am all overwhelmed, and this is not going away in the space of a heartbeat. So here's my version of this sentence, a quick little improval. The aromas of Christmas overwhelmed me. The gingerbread scent reminded me of Grandma's house in 1974. Do you get how all of a sudden this is a different story? It pulls the reader in deeper because it's sharing something, a memory, perhaps it's something more vulnerable, or I don't know, but it's deeper, and it happens automatically when we remove these little throwaway words. All right, what you'll find as you print your handout and go through the list is that not only has Demi pinpointed a list of about 10 different easy words and phrases that you can swap out to improve your writing dramatically quicker, but she's got a bullet point list of probably 35 or 40 words that you can search for. Because I think if you remove them or use them very sparingly, very is one of those words, use them sparingly. Yeah, it works in speech too. When you use these words less frequently, it will strengthen your writing. And not just because you've removed that word, but because when you take away the padding, you'll see exactly what needs to be added to tell your story faster and more effectively. A bit, about, approximately, almost, approaching. Do you understand how each of those words is vague? If we could add more detail, it will bring our reader deeper into our story and help them to experience what's going on in the book that much faster and that much stronger. And here's my favorites. Wow, redundant phrases. This one gets me because every time I'm out in public now and I hear one of these, I perk up because I think, I had no idea how many times we repeat ourselves without thought. These are phrases that we grew up with. Climb up, fall down, stand up, sit down. When you climb, have you ever climbed down? No, we climb up. So the up part of the phrase is redundant. How about sit? Sit down. Yes. Now, I hear you, those of you brainiacs out there, you're saying, well, I can sit up. And I will say, yes, that one is not redundant. Because typically when we think of sitting by itself, the act of sitting, we think of a downward motion. So if you're talking about a character leaning forward, perhaps intently, sitting up is fine. But even better is to indicate the motion of their body, how their chin might raise or sink if they're sitting forward, sitting up, but are afraid of who they're talking to. Whatever body language is being shown, the more specific you can be, the stronger that scene is going to be for everyone involved. All right. Now, there are 3 other items on the bottom of your handout here that I would encourage you to give a thought to. Later on in the year, we're going to look at adverb usage. Now, I know you don't want to go back to grammar school and figure out what are adverbs and how do I diagram those in a sentence. Yes, I'm thinking of you, Mary Pat. Anyway, I want you to simply consider that when you Control F to find some of these throwaway words in your document, you could also search for ly space. Because what this will find for you is all of the words in your document that end in the letters ly. Sparingly, rarely, ominously, verbosely. I'm making up words now. All of these adverbs should be used less frequently Because when we pull those helping words out, you're going to discover that there are stronger ways that you can be more descriptive of your scene. I'm going to put this challenge out for you now, and if you have a sentence in your writing that you come across that has an adverb in there, I'm going to encourage you, toss it in the comment box below, and we'll discuss some different ways that we could strengthen that, but we're going to focus on adverbs later on in our year together. And then, avoiding cliches like the plague. Wow, like the plague. Cliche alert, you'll see Demi chime in now and again. I would like you to consider kicking the bucket, a drop in the hat, any phrase that you've heard so frequently you can fill in the blank. Those are cliches. And I want to encourage you to think outside the box, to make your writing a fresher read and more fun to be a part of as each page gets turned in your book. Think of a fresh way to spin or twist that, and we'll revisit this topic as well later. Finally, for this session, I want to point you to a website where you can get some immediate help. If you're having trouble pinpointing the kinds of words and phrases in your document, here's a site you can go to. It's ProWritingAid.com. And for free, you can copy and paste in up to 1,000 words of your text, and it will spit back ways that you can improve the text. It will also analyze the text in your document, like an English teacher, and tell you, have you used the word phenomenal 6 times in your 1,000 words? Might be good to trim that down to 1, because it's a very particular word that people will remember and might start to get on your readers' nerves, get on their nerves. Okay, cliche alert. We want to avoid that and write it more freshly. It might start to tickle an itch in your reader. We want to open up this service to you, ProWritingAid.com. You can use it for free, and if you've ever used Grammarly, this is I'm going to jump out on a limb here and say it's a far more comprehensive service, and what they offer in the free package is just phenomenal. So I encourage you to hop out there to the website and take use of it, because I think after you look through it 1 or 2 times with your own prose, things will start to leap out at you differently than before. You don't have to commit more than 5 minutes to this at a time. These are easy tweaks that you can do in between date night with your muse, all right? I feel so strongly that writing out and keep writing until you get to the end of that first draft is the most critical, most important thing you can do for the success of your future book. So don't lose a lot of sleep over all this stuff, but I want to give you some tools now that you can use later as well as now if you're getting bored with the process and you need a little extra oomph to keep you inspired. I want to offer this up, but tell you in the same vein, do not stress about it. Get your first draft on paper first, or in the computer, however it is that you write the best. I'd love to hear your comments and questions below, and I look forward to reading and hearing you very shortly. Have a great week.